What's up, beautiful? It's Lisa Roulette, and today we're going to talk about soul contracts. I'm going to explain soul contracts from my direct experience of working with my own. And before we begin, I thought this was a good time to sort of remind ourselves that anytime we're learning about spirituality, esoterica, anything metaphysical, it's really important to keep an open heart and an open mind. And with whomever you're learning from or listening to, only take what resonates with you. That's really important. Anything that drives you into a state of fear or makes you sort of panicky is not right for you. I do not intend to scare you at all, but it may provoke some excitement within you. And whatever doesn't serve you, I encourage you to just leave behind. If you don't already know who I am an Ascension guide, healing coach, and manifesting mentor. And while that sounds like a big old mouthful, it's really all the same thing. Ascension is about our spiritual awakening, and to advance along the Ascension path, we need to heal. Healing lower levels of awareness on a relatively consistent basis. But the beauty of the healing process, the miracle of the healing journey, is that as we learn how to heal, we also learn how to create or manifest life experiences. When we've healed enough along our path, we start to create from a non-wounded awareness, and therefore we have more pristine, more intentional, and more pointed manifestations, and we can really create a life we love. So if that interests you, you're in the right place. Make sure you hit the subscribe and the notifications button to be notified every time I release a new video, and welcome to the family. So let's begin by talking about what a soul contract is. A soul contract is sort of like a master document of all of the experiences that we've agreed to have in a lifetime. And the reason we agree to experiences is so that we can advance along the ascension path. The ascension path, the actual destination or the end of the ascension path, is a reintegration with the one God source. So many of us and most of our souls are still relatively far away from that reintegration with the one source, but we have to wake up and remember that we are a direct connection of that one source before we can actually start the journey home. So oftentimes, the contents of our soul contracts are challenging, because if they weren't challenging, we wouldn't be jarred enough to wake up and realize who we really are. Now, not every part of our soul contract is challenging, but usually if it's not challenging and it's really wonderful, we don't recognize it as part of a soul contract. So it can have very positive, powerful aspects in it, but more than likely what you're going to really recognize in it is going to be the more challenging aspects. Now, one of the hardest things to understand about soul contracts is why we agree to them in the first place. Well, we do agree to them as part of our GPS back home, back to the one God source, to ultimately reintegrate fully, totally, and completely. But the other part of it is that we don't draft the contract. Our high self presents the contract to the soul, and then the soul agrees whether or not it will experience these contracts or live out these contracts in the physical body. But keep in mind, the high self does not have an ego, and the soul does not have an ego when it is not in the physical body. Now, if you don't understand the difference between the high self, soul, and temporal body or physical body, we call it a temporal body because it is a temporary experience, then I'll link a video that explains that in the description of the video below. Really important that you start to identify with the difference between the high self, soul, and temporal body or physical body, temporal self. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of my soul contract so that you can relate and maybe extract some of your soul contract from your own personal life experiences. I agreed to a lot of trauma and a lot of drama, and it was extremely confusing very early on. But the way I learned that all of that was part of my soul's contract was through the healing journey. As I expanded my awareness, I realized that everything I had been through was part of my ascension and my path back home. Now, two of the most outstanding lessons or themes that I had to work through was learning how to love myself and understanding what it was like to be all one or oneness. And the way I learned those was first by losing my brother and my only sibling, and my late husband, who's the father to my 2 children. I agreed to be paired with 2 individuals who would leave this earth early so that I could understand what it was like to be alone, because without understanding what it was like to be alone, I would never have been able to comprehend all one. Another very significant event that happened in my life was narcissistic abuse from both a best friend and a romantic partner. And I had to learn from these people what it was like not to be loved, because if I didn't know what it was like not to be loved, I would have never learned how to love myself. So while those were extraordinarily life-shattering events, I understand them as part of my soul contract. And in understanding them as part of my soul contract, I was able to advance along the path. And of course, the Ascension path is largely about emotional clearing. And so it became very instrumental in understanding these events as part of my soul contract, because I healed from them faster. Now, the hottest question on the table is, can you rewrite a soul contract? And the answer is yes, you can. But I come from the school of thought where it's more permissible to rewrite a karmic contract than it is to rewrite the rest of the contents of the soul's contract. I see the rest of the contents of the soul's contract as your GPS back home, back to the one God source and back to that place of reintegration. So if you rewrite these challenges that you're expected to navigate and to work your way through, you are going to divert off your path, which to me only slows things down and makes things more challenging lifetime over lifetime. But in the way of karmic contracts, I do believe that those are permissible to rewrite. I also believe they can be broken, and I believe that they can be rewritten with relative ease. I think also that the high self would allow that. They would say, okay, well, you've learned your lesson that you are powerful enough to do these things, and so be it. Go ahead and do that. Now, if you want a video on karmic contracts and how to rewrite a karmic contract, make sure you comment below. That's a wrap for this video, my friends. Thank you for joining me today. If you dig my vibe and you want to join my tribe, click on the description of the video below and join my texting list. There's all kinds of goodies down there, so check it out when you can. Don't forget to stay in the luminosity of your beautiful light, and you are loved.